Hi all, I'm Ajit Thomas, a faculty at Xylem Languages. Today we're going to look into an IELTS question type that many struggle over. തലക്കെട്ട്, തലയിൽ വെക്കുന്ന കെട്ട്, or identifying headings. So what should you first do when you get this question type? First thing you should do is go through each and every heading and try to figure out their meaning. Read each heading and try to grasp the meaning of each of them. And the second thing you got to do is, while reading, when you notice a key point in the heading, circle or underline it. The key point could be names, dates, or numbers, or nouns. Again, when you notice a name, date, or a noun, underline it. The third thing you should do is paraphrase the heading. That is, reform the heading in your own words. അതായത് സ്വന്തം വാക്കിൽ ഹെഡിങ്, സ്വന്തം വേർഡ്സിൽ ഹെഡിങ്ങിൻ്റെ അർത്ഥമുള്ള ഒരു ഫ്രേസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു കൺസ്ട്രക്റ്റ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. So go through each heading, figure out its meaning, at the same time underline the key points such as nouns, numbers, dates, and finally paraphrase the heading, that is, rewrite or reform the heading in your words. Following this, you can adopt two strategies: the heading first strategy or the paragraph first strategy. Each has its own advantage and disadvantage. Depending on your approach, you can select one of these. Select the one that suits your approach the best. Let's look at the heading first method. So in the heading first method, skim through the headings and note the keywords. First read each heading, noting the keywords. You can even underline them. Next, skim through the paragraph. Again, quickly read through the paragraph, noticing the main points. Now you have the main ideas from the heading and those from the paragraph. Match these ideas, and when you find a match, you can pick the correct heading. Now let's look at the advantages and challenges of heading first approach. In heading first approach, you form the expectation early. You know what you are searching for because you are reading the headings first. And also you avoid detail overload. This is something that students struggle a lot with. In a paragraph, there is a lot of detail and it's hard to remember everything. When you go through headings, there is a lot less detail, so it's easier to remember. That's one advantage of heading first approach. But there is one disadvantage as well. If the headings are similar, you might pick the wrong one. This is an issue with heading first approach. When the headings are similar, you have a tendency to pick the wrong one. All right, let's move on to the second strategy, which is the passage first strategy. So first, in this passage first strategy, skim the passage to understand its theme. If you go through the passage, you will get the theme. After that, read the headings, again noticing the main points. Then try to remember what you've read in the passage and match them. Again, let me remind you, first skim the passage to identify its theme, the main idea, what it's talking about. Then go through the headings, identifying the main points or the keywords. Then try to match by remembering what's in the paragraph and what's in the headings. Again, this approach too has its advantages and challenges. Since you go through the paragraphs or the passages in detail, you have a better sense of text structure in the heading first approach. But the challenge is that you might miss key phrases in headings. In headings first approach, you might miss key phrases in headings. Okay, let's look further. What you got to do when you skim through the paragraph. First, focus on the first and last sentences of the paragraph. This itself will give you a pretty good idea about what the theme of the paragraph is. And if you still don't get an idea, skim through rest of the paragraph. Do this only if the first and last sentences don't give you an idea about the overall theme. Also, while reading, look for signpost language. Now, what's a signpost? When riding through a road, you certainly have noticed signposts. Try to recollect one. Maybe you've seen one that says there is a junction ahead, or maybe it indicates that it's one way only. So a signpost gives a clue as to what is up ahead. Similarly, in language too, there are signposts. Words such as however, in contrast, for example, are examples of signposts. In the case of however, it indicates that what follows is in opposition to what was said before. So it indicates a contrast. Again, the second one, in contrast, does the same. It indicates an opposition to what was said before. And for example, as you all know, indicates that an example is following. These all indicate what's going to come next. So if you look out for these words, identifying the headings becomes easier. Another thing that you need to look out for are synonyms. In headings, they often use synonyms. Synonyms are words with the same meaning, but the words are different. For example, discover and find. So the passage, it might be discover, whereas in the heading it might be find. And unless you observe the fact that it's a synonym that has been used in the heading, you won't pick that answer. So that's what you've got to look out for as well. Keep an eye out for synonyms. And it's not just synonyms that you got to look for, you got to keep an eye open for antonyms as well. Antonyms are words with exact opposite meaning. But sometimes the word might be the exact same as what's given in the paragraph, but if you go through the entire sentence, it might indicate a totally different or opposite meaning. So the words might be identical, but because of the way in which they've been put across or the way in which they've been used, they might indicate the exact opposite meaning. So this is another trick that's often used in this question type. So remember again, look for synonyms, that is words with similar meaning. So you might have a word in the paragraph, and in the heading you might have another word with the same meaning. Again, you have to look for antonyms as well, that is words with opposite meanings, but because of the context they might mean the exact opposite, which means they might end up meaning exactly what's given in the paragraph. Alright, let's move on. And elimination. This is another strategy that you can use. If a heading doesn't seem if a heading seems unlikely to fit or match any of the paragraphs, then cross it out, eliminate it. That shortens your list, makes searching a lot easier. If you see that 2 or 3 headings seem to match a paragraph, write them, or write the main points of each of them beside that paragraph, and when you juxtapose them, that is, put them side by side, it becomes easier to find out which one matches the paragraph. And don't linger too long on these questions that you find hard to answer. Move on. There's a reason for that. This is because the reason why you shouldn't linger is because matching the headings are time consuming. So don't spend more than 10 minutes on this question type. If you're stuck, make an educated guess. That is based on whatever information you can glean or extract out of the paragraph. Make a guess and then move on. And if you have any spare time at the end, come back and try to figure out the answer. So you got to balance accuracy with speed. So let me remind you again. The first thing that you got to do with headings is go through each of them and try to figure out their meanings while underlining the keywords. Then at the same time try to paraphrase them so that you get a clearer picture as to what it means. And sometimes what you paraphrase might be identical to what's given in the list of headings, or might be very similar. After that, you can adopt the headings first strategy, in which you skim through the headings and then through the passage and try to match them. After that, or you can adopt the paragraph first strategy, where you skim through the passage and identify the main theme, and then go through the headings and try to match them from memory. And look out for synonyms, that's words with similar meaning or the exact same meaning. And don't forget antonyms either, that is words with opposite meaning, but contextually they might end up meaning the same thing as what is given in the passage. And utilize the elimination strategy. And let me remind you all, you can join our IELTS program, where we will give you more such tricks and tips to crack all IELTS question types. And you can click on the link in the description box and we will get in touch with you. Further, you can join our YouTube channel to access more such videos. With that, I'm signing off. Goodbye.